Hello again. It is Wednesday, and we are doing another segment of weekend reading, week 3. I almost had all the kinks worked out last week. Didn't quite work out the way I wanted. Had to change some things in the video, but I think I might have worked out in my head how to better do it. I had to change the angle here because, this is a little. Just a second. I hate this fucking door. This was a little bright in the window, so I figured I'd change it so the brightness doesn't fuck with the video so much. Okay, now, down to brass tacks. What are we talking about? Well, last week I had 3 options of things that I was reading last weekend, and I chose one that I thought would be the most interesting. Out of the 3, it did end up being the most interesting. That would be this one, Event Leviathan. I did like it. It's from Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev, however you pronounce his name. It was an interesting read. It was very espionage related. Has to do with in the DC universe, there's an organization called Leviathan that is run by Talia al Ghul, the daughter of Ra's al Ghul, who runs the League of Shadows, or League of Assassins, as it's also referred to. But then recently, some weird guy in this red armor who calls himself Leviathan showed up, and he just all of a sudden was in charge of Leviathan and seems to usurp Talia al Ghul's placement in the organization. And he basically showed up doing all these weird things where he was basically taking all the clandestine organizations in the world, like all of them, like the terrorist organizations. Like, he usurped Leviathan. He took out Cobra, which is not the same as the G.I. Joe's one, though some people think one might have ripped off the other. The League of Assassins disappeared. All the government-sanctioned ones like Spiral and Argus and the DEO, they all were attacked and their bases were destroyed. Their leaders were either attempts were made on their lives or they had to go into hiding. Many people just disappeared and they thought people were being killed, but it turns out that the Leviathan was actually taking people and resources to recruit them and use all these different organizations' tech. Then around the whole thing, a group of detectives is formed. They call it the world's greatest detectives, but it's Batman, which of course makes sense. The Question, who is another detective character in the DC universe. Lois Lane, who's not necessarily a detective, but she's an investigative journalist, which is almost the same thing. But then they add like weird ones in, like Green Arrow, who isn't really known for being a detective, but he is kind of like a Batman-esque character, sorta. So I guess you could kind of wing it. But then there's like Plastic Man, who makes no sense whatsoever. Most people go like, why wouldn't you go with Elongated Man, who has almost the same exact powers as Plastic Man, but is also a fucking detective? Like, that's his thing. He's a detective with like weird stretchy and shape-shifting powers. So it seemed weird, like, where they would go with Elongated Man. And then the character Kate Spencer, who's known as Manhunter, gets wrapped into it because at a point when the DEO is attacked, somebody pretending to be her makes an attempt on the DEO's director Bones' life, and she gets she gets framed for an attempted murder, and so she has to go on the run, and she ends up with this weird detective group trying to figure out what the hell happened. Damian Wayne, Robin, also gets involved because he thinks that Red Hood is behind the whole thing. He thinks Red Hood is secretly Leviathan. It ended up being a bit more lackluster of a story than I thought. you eventually find out that Lois Lane was responsible for putting together the whole, because her father is one of the heads of Argus, and he almost died when Argus was attacked. So I think they tried to take him, and he almost. The problem is they split up this whole story over a bunch of different books. I think it started in Superman, and then it ended up here in this main miniseries, and it kind of like you would read parts of the story like months ahead of time, and kind of became hard to keep track of everything. But I believe Leviathan tried to take him, and he ended up having a heart attack, and he ended up in the hospital. By the end of the story, he ends up dead. He's just they make another attack on him, and he's just too weak to handle it, and he dies. They also take Amanda Waller at one point, but you never quite find out what happens to her. That's part of the problem I have with the story. There's a lot of... It doesn't really... There's really not a lot of satisfaction to the story. The revelation of who Leviathan isn't really that great of a revelation. It is a side character so obscure that I had to look up who the fuck he was. Apparently he's one of the many characters who used to go by the name Manhunter. I didn't even know there were that many. Apparently Kate Spencer is the third one to go by third or fourth to go by that name. I only knew the Green Lantern robot guys. But yeah, I had no idea that there was another guy who went by the name Manhunter. But apparently he is one of them. I don't want to give away his name in case anyone watches this and actually wants to read it. But I probably already revealed too much. But yeah, it's a guy who I had no idea who the hell he was. So the revelation of who he was like, I don't know who that is. So that wasn't even really that big of a deal. But now he's a big deal. Because by the end of it, like I said, there's no resolution. Leviathan just gets defeated in their current plot. Their current plot was to dismantle all the clandestine organizations, which they do. Take out the leadership either by taking them, killing them, or having the so beaten that they end up running away or are put in jail, which they do. Taking all their people and resources and converting it to their own needs. They somehow end up recruiting all these different agents and just taking all the different technology and resources these organizations have. So now they're just one super clandestine organization that controls the entire spy world. And so they've essentially won. The only thing that the heroes stopped them from doing is stopping them from, I guess, temporarily revealing all the secrets that the governments and different shadow organizations had. But even that isn't quite clear. Have they done that permanently? It seems like they only did that temporarily. And in the end, the guy who's going by Leviathan, he's just disappointed that Superman wouldn't join him because he claims he wants to build a better world. And he's disappointed in all the heroes, especially Superman, for not wanting to be by his side. Eventually Superman ends up joining the detective group. Oh, and there's another detective group. Apparently Lois Lane put together another detective group in secret to have them work a different angle. And that detective group is made up of... That detective group has Elongated Man in it. It also has Harvey Bullock, John Constantine and Zatanna. I don't know why he had two magic people. And it has the female Question, Renee Montoya. So... about as many actual detectives as the other group had. And then the two groups eventually have to work together to stop Leviathan from doing something. He tries to take Superman at one point. I don't know. I also don't know what happened to Plastic Man. None of the things were really made clear. He tried to recruit Batgirl, but she ended up stabbing Leviathan in the back. I think she was the one who stopped him from releasing all the secrets. She had some plan in place. She just needed them to help her. She just needed the groups to help her. So, yeah, it's... I don't know. Normally, I like Bendis' writing. I like Malev's art, but this felt kind of lackluster. This felt like more setup than actual story. It just felt like a setup for something more. Like they're just setting up this new group to do something. It's funny, I was thinking about how at one point, I have a book that I read about the rivalry between DC and Marvel Comics, and in it, Brian Michael Bendis at a convention, like talk shit about DC. That's back when he was still like the Marvel guy, and now he jumped ship to DC, and now he's worked on Superman. He brought back the Teen Titans. He created that new character Naomi. He did a major mini series for them, and he's taking over the Justice League. So I guess his feelings on DC have either softened or they were just bullshit to begin with. I'm gonna guess the latter, but you never know for certain. Okay, so that was the big read last week. That was kind of not that big of a read and ended up being lackluster. What are we reading this weekend? Glad you asked. That's not it. There we go. Okay. Let's see. What are we looking at this weekend? Well, let's start with this one. This one is Deceased by Tom Taylor and Trevor Hairsine. Is that who does the art? I don't know. There's so many names on here, it becomes hard to keep track. Oh my god, there's so many artists listed here. Yeah, the writer is Tom Taylor. And then we have Trevor Hairsine, Stefano Guadiano, Laura Braga, Richard Friend, James Herron, Derek Robertson, Trevor Scott, and Neil Edwards, all listed as artists. What does this collect? This collects Deceased 1 through 6 and Deceased A Good Day to Die 1. This is supposed to be some kind of alternate universe thing. And it's about, let's see, 6 million people are infected by a techno-organic virus that's unleashed on Earth. 600 million turn into mindless, rampaging killers bent on death and destruction. And that's just the beginning. Cities, nations, undersea kingdoms, and paradise islands. One by one, they fall to the monstrous hordes. And only Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and the rest of the Justice League stand between Earth and utter annihilation. But for how long? Nothing they've ever faced has prepared them for an onslaught of this magnitude. Nothing they've ever seen can match the scale of the tragedy and terror that have been unleashed. As heroes and villains, gods and monsters are wiped out, only one question remains. What happens to the world's greatest heroes if the world ends? This is definitely a sort of alternate reality thing, what used to be referred to as Elseworlds, where the world basically goes to hell and the Justice League has to kind of stop it. So, it could be a good read. Not looking... The art seems fine. But yeah. An interesting read, but I don't really know a lot about it. I just grabbed it because I thought the cover looked cool and I just wanted to see. Next up. Legion of Superheroes, Volume 2. This is the recently relaunched Legion of Superheroes. Oh, also by Brian Michael Bendis. Forgot about that one. With art by Ryan Sook. I like Sook's art. Very clean, very nice looking art. This looks like another one oh my god, this looks like it has a bunch of different artists on it too. Although Ryan Sook is the main artist, but it's literally a ridiculous amount of artists, some whose name I recognize, some whose name I don't. But yeah, this is the recently relaunched Legion of Superheroes series that spun out of Superman. Yeah. Or was it Action Comics? One of the two. I believe it was Superman. Huh. Sorry about that, I just realized something. but yeah, it's spun out of Superman or I think it was Superman. Yeah, it was Superman. Where it turns out that Superman and Superboy were responsible. Like, Superboy came up with the idea for the United Planets after an intergalactic war almost broke out, and him and Superman helped put it into place, with Superman representing Earth. And as a result, the Legion of Superheroes come back from the 30th century, the 31st century, and they ask Superboy to basically join them for a little bit, as he is their inspiration. So they changed the story a little bit, that Superman is no longer the inspiration. Superboy was the inspiration for the Legion of Superheroes. They're really they're really centering Jonathan Kent a lot now, which lines up with what they plan to do as making him Superman, at least temporarily. I feel like that's only going to be a temporary thing, but you never know. Let's see. The trial of the 31st century. The United Planets has found the Legion of Superheroes guilty of crimes against the galaxy. It's up to our young heroes to prove their innocence, featuring an all-new cast of artists. This collection, a lot of artists. This collection features a surprise 1,000 years in the making. The unstoppable behemoth Rogol Zar has survived the millennium to hunt Superboy and his teammates. Oh yes, he was the character that was introduced in, I believe, Superman. That story kind of just got weirdly left. There was a story, I believe it was in Superman, that was just sort of left hanging. I guess that, I don't know. Was this a challenge Brainiac 5 predicted? Is the Legion up to the task? They better be, because the future of New Krypton hangs in the balance. With the planet on the verge of destruction at the hands of one of Jonathan Kent's deadliest foes, the young hero will have to make the ultimate sacrifice to save his friends, family, and heritage. And it could lead to the start of a monumental new chapter in the future of the DC Universe. Long live the Legion. Plus, not everything is doom and gloom in the 31st century. Young romance is alive and well. Find out who's dating whom in another exhilarating chapter of the Legion of Superheroes epic tale. I've always liked the Legion of Superheroes. The problem is, they always end up abandoning it and rebooting it and changing it so much it keeps hard to keep track of everything. Most of the characters are the same, but there's always something a little different, but I'll always give it a shot just to see. It's definitely an interesting premise, and in and of itself, and an interesting, I mean, it looks great. So like I said, Bendis is a good writer. He usually has very interesting ideas. So we'll see. But this still isn't the one I'm most excited about. The one I'm most excited about is an interesting read, because it wasn't something that came out the week that I bought. This is actually a very old read that was on the shelves that I was just showed an interest in. It's called Justice League of America, The Nail, by Alan Davis and Mark Farmer. This is an old one. This is a rather old one. This is back when they used to still call Elseworlds books Elseworlds. As you can see in the corner, has the little Elseworld logo. Yeah. This is from, when did it come out? When was it originally out? This was oh my god, this is from 1998. This is an over 20-year-old comic. I skipped it when it originally came out. I always meant to get into it, but it was just something that kind of passed me by, but it always seemed like an interesting thing. I mean, Alan Davis is a legend. I believe he writes and he writes and pencils the whole thing, and Mark Farmer is the inker and colorist. But yeah, Alan Davis is the writer and artist of this, and it's going to look fantastic, and the story should be interesting. Like I said, Alan Davis, he's a if you don't know, he's a fucking legend of the comic book field. He's been around for decades. I believe made his name writing the old Legion of Superheroes, working as an artist on the old Legion of Superheroes. Really made himself popular that way. I believe so. Let's see. Elseworlds. In Elseworlds, heroes are taken from their usual settings and put into strange times and places. Some that have existed or might have existed, and others that can't, couldn't, or shouldn't exist. This is one of those stories. Formed by the world's greatest heroes, the Justice League that's the concept of what an Elseworlds book is. This used to be a regular thing that DC used to do in the 90s. I wish they would bring them back. They were really interesting, but they kind of just sort of left them. It's one of the many things DC just quietly abandoned that people actually liked. Let's see. Formed by the world's greatest heroes, the Justice League of America stands tall as the mightiest group of protectors this Earth has to offer. Since their founding, one hero above all others has stood out as their inspiration, guiding light, and moral center: Superman. Now imagine a world without the Man of Steel. Welcome to the alternate history of JLA the Nail, and a fascinating story of tiny accidents that cascade into cataclysmic disasters. Writer-artist Alan Davis. Oh no, that's right. He was best known for Excalibur from Marvel Comics. Creates a world that never knew a Superman with a Justice League that is about to face their greatest test of might and morality. All because of something as simple as a nail. This is the one I'm most interested in because this is a comic book that I've wanted to read, obviously, for a very long time. So I'm really betting on that this one will be the one that I come back with the highest approval of. So we'll see. But yes, that's my reading list for this week. Whichever one I like the best is the one I'll come back with the review for. And the others will, the others I'm sure will be fine. But yeah, that's it for this week. That's what I'm reading. And I'll see you next week to tell you what I'm reading then. Have a good one.